There was Clement, lying beside his mother, his head resting on her breast, her hand gently stroking his hair. Vera's stomach twisted. She backed away, stumbling over her own feet as tears filled her eyes. Vera stood outside her new home, her heart a mix of excitement and nerves. It was a grand house, right in the heart of the city, and she couldn't help but feel a bit out of place. Her parents had arranged her marriage to Clement, a successful man with a solid career, and by all accounts, she was supposed to feel lucky. Everyone said she was marrying well. She was grateful, she really was, but something in her gut felt uncertain. Their courtship had been wonderful. Clement was a charming man, larger than life, with an easy smile and a way of making her feel like she was the only woman in the room. For 6 months, they had explored the city together, and as a girl originally from the village, it had felt like stepping into a dream. He made her laugh, took her to places she had only heard of, and brought color into her life. It wasn't hard to fall for him either. He was warm, generous, and the kind of person who took up space in the best possible way. It just seemed perfect. Clement was a chief financial officer at Caesar Bank, one of the top banks in the city. People admired his success and respectability as a CFO. He had worked hard to get where he was, and Vera admired that about him. During their courtship, he had been nothing but kind, thoughtful, and caring. But there was one thing Vera had noticed early on: his closeness with his mother, Kate. It was sweet, she tried to convince herself. A son who loved his mother was a good thing, wasn't it? So she brushed it off. But now, standing in front of this grand house that was meant to be her new home, she felt a hint of unease. The feeling only deepened when she finally met Kate. Clement's mother was friendly, but carried a presence that filled the room. And it wasn't long before Vera noticed that Kate had her own way of running things. She handled nearly everything in the house, from the meals to the furniture arrangements and even the smallest details, like Clement's daily schedule. Before they were married, Kate had seemed supportive of their relationship, always showing kindness to Vera. But now it was clear she wasn't just a supportive mother. She was actively involved in every corner of Clement's life. What surprised Vera even more was that Clement didn't mind. In fact, he seemed to thrive on it. Kate prepared his favorite dishes, ironed his shirts, and even reminded him of appointments. He seemed content to let her lead, and to him, it all seemed perfectly natural. To Vera, though, it felt strange. She wanted to contribute, to be part of Clement's life in a real way, but it was hard to do so when Kate had everything under control. Vera felt herself slipping into the role of a guest rather than a wife. At first, she kept quiet. She told herself that things would settle down once they found their rhythm. But each day, as she watched Clement and his mother go about their routines without her, that feeling of being an outsider only grew stronger. This life was supposed to be hers too. Yet, she felt like she was standing on the edge, wondering if she'd ever belong in Clement's world. Looking back on her wedding day, Vera realized she hadn't thought much about what life with Clement would truly be like after marriage. To her, it had felt like a natural next step. The wedding had been a grand, bustling affair with family, friends, and strangers her parents had invited to make the day as lively as possible. She had felt so happy and hopeful that day, marrying the man she loved. Clement was successful, caring, and easy to love. What more could she want? But now, certain details from the day lingered in her mind. She remembered how proud Clement had seemed, standing beside her, but she also noticed how often his eyes drifted towards his mother. Kate had sat in the front row, beaming, but each time Clement glanced her way, it was as if he was silently checking in on her, as though he needed her approval. Vera remembered feeling a little irritated at the time, wondering why his attention wasn't fully on their big day. But she had brushed it off, assuming it was just his way of grounding himself in the chaos of the crowd. Yet now, as she thought about it, a strange worry settled deep in her stomach. Was Kate always going to be there in the background of their marriage, present in every decision, every moment? Would she become a third person in their marriage, a second wife? Vera shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought. Maybe she was just overthinking it, letting small things get under her skin. But that nagging feeling stayed, no matter how hard she tried to ignore it. As the days passed, that feeling only grew. Small things that had once seemed harmless now felt odd, even unsettling. One afternoon, during a quiet family lunch, she watched as Clement reached across the table, offering his mother a bite from his fork. Kate's hand lingered over his, giving it a gentle squeeze as she accepted the food. Their interaction a little too intimate. Vera forced herself to smile, but inside her heart pounded. She had never seen a woman, a mother and son, act like this before. Her own family was close, but there was boundaries, unspoken lines that felt natural. With Clement and Kate, those lines felt blurry, almost non-existent. The questions crept in, uninvited. Was this normal? Was this just how he was raised? And why, in her own home, did she feel more like an outsider than a wife? As much as she tried to quiet the doubts, Vera couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something she hadn't prepared for. Late one night, Vera woke up to find the bed empty. Her hand reached across, expecting Clement's warmth, but all she found were cold sheets. Groggy and confused, she slipped out of bed, padding through the dark house in search of him. "Clement," she whispered, voice barely audible. Silence. She checked the kitchen, the living room. Nothing. Then, as she passed Kate's room, Vera saw a faint sliver of light beneath the door. Holding her breath, she peeked through the crack, her eyes widened, her heart pounding wildly as she took in the sight before her. There was Clement, lying beside his mother, his head resting on her breast, her hand gently stroking his hair. Vera's stomach twisted. She backed away, stumbling over her own feet as tears filled her eyes. The next morning, she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Clement," she started, her voice shaky. "Can we talk?" He looked up from his breakfast, a little surprised. "Of course, Vera. What's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I don't understand. Every night you're not here. You're with your mother? I thought we'd be sharing a bed." Clement sighed, looking almost annoyed. "I sleep better there, Vera. What's the problem?" Vera's voice rose, frustration and confusion bubbling up. "The problem is, it feels like I'm the guest in my own marriage. Like, I don't know, like I'm the second wife." Clement frowned, his jaw tightening. "Vera, that's not funny. She's my mother. You're reading too much into this." "Too much?" She choked, barely believing her ears. "Clement, I didn't sign up for whatever this is. I feel like I don't even belong here. Why can't we share a bed like a normal husband and wife?" He looked away, a shadow crossing his face. "This is just the way things are. You need to accept it." Vera's heart sank. She had thought marriage would bring them closer, that they'd be a team, a family of their own. But instead, she felt lost, as if she were intruding on a bond she could never fully understand. Each night, as she lay alone in their bed, the questions grew darker, and her heart grew heavier. What kind of marriage had she entered? And was there any hope for her to break through this strange, unyielding wall between her and the man she had married? Vera felt like an outsider in her own life, a spectator. Family meals were the worst. Kate took control of organizing everything, and Clement seemed to follow her every word. Vera tried to join in, to be a part of the conversations, but whenever she spoke, They'd talk over her or act like she wasn't even there. She'd laugh at a joke, only to realize no one else had heard her. One afternoon, hoping to feel a bit more like a wife, Vera offered to serve Clement his favorite dish. She had just picked up the plate when Kate swooped in, taking it from her hands with a warm smile. "I know exactly how Clement likes his food," she said, not even glancing at Vera as she changed the soup to the one she had prepared. "Honey, Clement doesn't like his soup too spicy. I can show you how to make it the way he likes one day." "I think I've got it, Kate. This is how he enjoyed it last time," Vera said. "Maybe he didn't want to hurt your feelings, dear," Kate returned. Vera frowned, feeling the warmth drain from her face. She looked at Clement, searching his expression for any sign that he had noticed what was happening, that he would defend her, or even just acknowledge her efforts. But he only nodded, letting his mother take over as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Vera forced a smile, but inside her heart was breaking. "Clement," she said softly that evening, trying to keep the hurt from her voice. "Don't you think I should, I don't know, be the one to take care of you? I am your wife, after all." Clement shrugged, barely meeting her eyes. "Mom is just used to it. You don't need to worry." Vera felt a pang in her chest, her hands trembling. "Used to it? Clement, I feel like I don't even belong here. Like, why did you even marry me?" Clement sighed, almost dismissive. "Vera, not again." But Vera couldn't let it go. Every time Kate stepped in, every time Clement remained silent, it became clearer that she was standing on the outside of this marriage. Vera felt her heart grow heavier with each passing day. She had imagined marriage was a partnership, a place where she'd have someone to share her thoughts, her laughter, and her life. But with Clement, those moments were rare. Most days he was either wrapped up in work or by his mother's side, leaving Vera feeling like a guest in her own marriage. One night, as she lay in bed, alone once again, something inside her broke. She needed answers, no matter how hard it was to ask. She found Clement just as he was heading to his mother's room and forced herself to speak. "Clement," she whispered, her voice barely holding steady. "Why do you always sleep there? Why not here with me?" He looked at her as though this question was silly. "It's just comfortable," he replied with a shrug. "Mother knows how to take care of me best." Vera's stomach twisted with nausea. She wanted to shout, to tell him that she could take care of him too, that she was his wife, his partner. But she could see in his eyes that he didn't understand, maybe didn't even care. "Good night, Vera," he said softly, already turning away. As she watched him walk down the hall, her heart shattered. She had never felt so alone. Vera's frustrations grew as she watched Clement and his mother act as if she didn't exist, always lost in their own world. When she gathered the courage to speak up, he brushed her off without a second thought. "You're imagining things, Vera. This is just how we are," he would say. She wondered if she was overreacting, trying to see it from his side. But all the times they had excluded her haunted her thoughts. Finally, she sat him down, her voice shaking. "I don't feel like a part of your family. You and your mother, you're so close, and I understand. But I feel left out." Clement looked annoyed. "Vera, you're overthinking this. My mom and I are close. Why is that a problem?" Her heart hurt. She had opened up, hoping he'd care. But his response left her feeling like her feelings didn't matter. At that moment, she realized how truly alone she was in this marriage. "You don't see anything wrong with what is happening? What 34-year-old man you know sleeps with his mother with his head on her breast? What grown man still bathes with his mother? Clement, does this seem normal to you?" Her voice shook with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "I didn't sign up to be married in a polygamous relationship, Clement. I am your wife, not a second wife." Clement's face twisted with rage, his eyes flashing. He controlled himself and left their room in a huff of rage, slamming the door loudly. Kate's reaction was swift and fierce. Her eyes narrowed and she placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Clement," she said sharply, "Vera doesn't understand us. She wants to tear apart what we've built. The bond I've nurtured all these years. She doesn't know what we have been through." Her voice softened, but her gaze was hard. "Don't let anyone come between us. You hear me?" Clement felt the weight of her words settle over him. He nodded slowly, taking his mother's hand. "I won't, Mama. Nothing will change." That evening, when Vera tried to talk to him, hoping to finally connect, Clement's expression was icy. He cut her off before she could even begin, his voice cold and distant. "I don't want to hear it, Vera. Just drop it." The walls between them grew thicker, and Vera felt her heart slowly sinking, a sense of loss creeping over her. She was losing him, piece by piece and day by day. If things continued like this, she might have to make an impossible choice. The next day, as Vera prepared dinner, Kate appeared in the kitchen, eyes blazing. "Why are you trying to ruin my relationship with my son?" she hissed. "Do you know what I have sacrificed to raise him? How dare you try to take him from me?" Vera's jaw clenched as she stirred the pot, forcing herself to stay calm. But when Kate sniffed and said, "Besides, Clement doesn't even like what you're cooking," something snapped. Her patience, already worn thin, finally gave way. "If you know him so well," Vera began, voice shaking, "then why don't you marry him yourself? Hell, give him children. Clearly, I'm not needed here." She stormed out, leaving Kate standing alone in the kitchen. After all, it was Kate's kitchen anyways, just as it felt like everything else in Clement's life still belonged to his mother. After the confrontation, the tension in the house grew, with Kate watching her every move and Clement ignoring her for perceived disrespect towards his mother. Vera felt a little guilty for her rash words, but she was going crazy. She didn't know what to do. At times, she felt like she was being punked or in a reality TV show. She wondered if there was any way to fix her marriage. But Clement seemed so distant. He had his mother's company and comfort, but what did she have? She sat alone in the living room, listening to the laughter coming from Kate's room. It was a painful reminder of how excluded she felt. With each passing day, Vera's thoughts drifted more toward leaving, though the thought made her heart ache. Vera knew something had to change, though, or she would break. Unable to bear the tension any longer, Vera decided to take action. She needed to reconnect with Clement, away from the constant interference and distractions of his mother. So she came up with a plan, a weekend trip, just the two of them, to rekindle the romance they had shared in the early days. She grew excited, feeling a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this could shift the course of their marriage. One evening after dinner, she took a deep breath and turned to Clement. "I thought maybe we could go on a weekend trip together, just us, somewhere quiet, where we can relax and have fun." Clement's eyes lit up, if only for a moment, in happiness. "That sounds nice," he said, a small smile forming on his lips. But before Vera could feel relief, Kate, who had been sitting nearby, chimed in with a knowing smile. "Oh, but Clement, what about your cousin's event? We were going to make an appearance together, remember? Surely that's more important than a weekend getaway." Vera felt her heart sink again in disappointment. He looked torn, glancing between Vera and Kate, but he didn't speak. Instead, Kate leaned in, her hand resting on his arm. "Family always comes first, dear. This is your cousin. You wouldn't want to let him down now, would you?" Clement's hesitation vanished as he nodded slowly, his gaze shifting back to Vera. "Mom's right, Vera. Maybe we can do this trip another time." Vera forced a smile, her stomach twisting as she nodded. "Of course. Another time. Of course." But as she watched Clement and Kate exchange a glance, her hope faded, leaving a hollow ache in its place. Vera spent weeks biting her tongue, swallowing her pride as she tried to hold on to her marriage. But nothing could have prepared her for the humiliation she would experience at the family dinner Kate organized one Friday night. The evening started normally. with Kate bustling around the kitchen, barking instructions and reminders to anyone who would listen. Vera stayed quiet, helping where she could, hoping the night would pass without conflict. She settled at the table beside Clement, feeling oddly optimistic that maybe they'd have a peaceful night. Kate cleared her throat, calling everyone's attention. "Everyone, I have a surprise," she announced, smiling with a glint in her eyes. "I wanted to share something special with Clement tonight." Vera frowned, feeling a prick of worry. Kate then reached under the table and pulled out a large envelope, handing it directly to Clement with a knowing look. "What's this, Mom?" Clement asked, confused. "Open it," Kate insisted, practically glowing with excitement. As he peeled it open, Vera's heart started pounding. Inside were tickets to a luxury cruise, a romantic trip for two. "Oh wow, a cruise! This is amazing, Mom," Clement said, beaming at her. He held up the tickets, showing them off to everyone around the table. Vera forced a smile, waiting for him to turn to her, for him to say something that included her in this special surprise. But the words never came. Kate's voice cut through her thoughts. "I booked the cruise for us, Clement, just you and me. I thought we could take some time together, get away from it all." Vera's jaw dropped. She couldn't believe her ears. Was she serious? A romantic trip for two with her son? Vera mustered the courage to speak up, her voice shaken. "Excuse me, Kate, aren't I supposed to go with Clement?" Kate looked at her with a pitying smile. "Oh, Vera dear, this isn't really your sort of thing. This is for family." She patted Vera's hand as if she was a child condescendingly. "Don't worry, dear. I'm sure you'll manage here just fine." The room went silent, everyone's eye on Vera. Heat rose to her cheeks, and shame burned through her. She glanced at Clement, hoping, praying, that he'd speak up. But he looked away, unable to meet her gaze, as if he hadn't just witnessed his mother claim their marriage as her own. At that moment, Vera made up her mind. She had had enough. She wouldn't live in the shadows of her own life any longer. She leaned close to Clement, her voice calm but icy. "I am done here, Clement. I'll be in my room." She tossed her napkin onto the table and walked out, her steps echoing through the silent dining room. She waited in her room, fuming. Her mind raced through every slight, every humiliation she had endured. For 2 whole hours. Clement finally entered, his face confused and almost offended. "That was rude of you, Vera," he said, his tone accusatory. "Leaving in the middle of a family dinner? You embarrassed me. And my mother." Vera let out a bitter laugh, feeling an edge she'd never felt before. "Oh, I'm going crazy, Jesus." She took a shaky breath. "You were embarrassed? Did you miss the part where your mother basically announced to everyone that I'm worthless as a wife?" Clement frowned, visibly annoyed. "We've been through this, Vera. Stop beating a dead horse." Vera's patience snapped. Her voice rose, fueled by the months of pent-up frustration. Oh, so I'm beating a dead horse, am I? Let's see. On top of the two of you sleeping together, bathing together, literally feeding each other, now you go on couples vacations too. But I'm the one who's being unreasonable? Clement's jaw clenched. That's different. Oh, really? When I suggested a vacation last week, what was your mother's excuse? Her voice grew louder. Say it, Clement. What did she say? Clement hesitated, looking away. My cousin's event, he muttered. Yes, your cousin's event. But it suddenly is unimportant when she suggests a cruise, Vera said, her voice breaking. I was never like this, Clement, I promise you. I was never a nag or a mess. But you and your mother are driving me up the wall. You have made me unrecognizable to myself. My hair's falling out from stress. My nails are bitten raw from worry. She choked on her words, tears streaming down her face. So, Mr. CFO, anything else to say? Clement looked away, frowning. Vera, why do you keep bringing this up? My mother means a lot to me. You should respect that. Vera closed her eyes, a bitter smile forming. Respect. Yes, respect. Respect is important. I think I'll take your advice, Clement, and respect myself. She took a deep breath. Close the door when you leave. Go be with Kate. Have children with her if you want, for all I care. I'm too disgusted to even look at you right now. That night, as she lay awake in the dark, her mind settled on a heartbreaking yet freeing decision. She would have to leave. The next morning, Vera packed a small bag. She looked around at the home she had tried so hard to build with Clement, feeling both sadness and relief. When Clement returned and saw her bag, his face was filled with shock. Are you really going to leave over this? He asked. Vera met his gaze, standing firm. I need love and respect, Clement, and you've shown me I'll never have it here. If you ever loved me, it disappears the minute you see your mother. If I am a home wrecker in my own home just by existing, then I'll leave so you two lovebirds can finally love and leave in peace, whatever kind of love that is. This is where we end this story for the day, my dear readers. If you liked this story or you enjoyed it, please leave a comment on what you learned from this tale. And please subscribe and like this video so you can tune in for the next installment of this story. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!